Welcome to the Mayor's Show. As always, as I always begin a show, we have a very important show, a lot of information to give out there to people in Bensalem and Bucks County. I have with me today a very special guest, a gentleman that I've worked with many, many years. He is currently an elected official in Warminster. He's the vice president there at Warminster. He was past president for 2 or 3 years, I believe. He is now our president of BCATO. BCATO is Bucks County Association of Township Officials, and that's from all over Bucks County. The officials that meet, I am on that board. I actually chair the legislative committee, and it's bringing information and gathering information for all of the communities around here in Bucks County. Dan is our president, and doing a great job, and it's not an easy job, as most people on the top have to deal with a lot. And Dan, welcome, number one. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate
it. We're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to give you an opportunity. Okay. A lot of people don't know what BCATO is, I'm sure. Yes. So why don't you give them a little rundown on what we do at BCATO?
Absolutely. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. BCATO, what BCATO is, BCATO was formed in 1907 to represent and advance the best interests of townships all over Bucks County. BCATO actually it helps aid in exchange of ideas and experiences among local officials here in Bucks County, and it also helps promote a better understanding of what it is to be a local official and the responsibilities of being local officials here in Bucks County. BCATO is comprised of 29 townships all throughout Bucks County. And it also is within the 4th largest county.
Now, that's township of second class, am I correct?
The township of second class, correct.
Yes. Township of second class. We have third class townships, and of course there's cities and so on. But this is of second class townships.
Correct. And,
which we are, Bensalem.
BCATO is also, the general membership of BCATO consists of, you have all your local elected township supervisors, auditors, and tax collectors. BCATO is governed by the executive board, which we're both members of. The executive board is comprised of members such as yourself from townships as large as 60,000 people in Bensalem to Kathy Gettner in Durham Township, who represents a little under 2,000 people. So at our executive meetings, which we have once a month, there's a diversity, a wide range of different perspectives that go on. I want to go back to...
I want to stop you for a second. Sure. Let's think about that. We have communities of 2,000 people.
Correct.
And all the way up to, obviously, Bensalem, which is the largest, over 60,000 people. So imagine a governing of those types of communities, which BCATO addresses. So
absolutely.
It takes in all factions of different problems.
The wide range of issues that are affecting all of Bucks County, absolutely. And also to go back to how BCATO, one of their roles is to help guide and promote a better understanding of the duties of being a local elected official. I think, Mayor, it's important to point out that local government has more impact on the residents' day-to-day life than any other form of government.
Absolutely.
More impact on state government and national government. When you consider the local resident, the roads he drives on, the local roads he drives on, the traffic, as far as trash hauling, the local police departments and fire departments, they're all managed through local government. That proposed housing development down the street from the resident, how that's going to affect his community, again, that's managed through local government.
Right.
So BCATO pays...
It all starts here. It all starts at local government, and the most important part of your community.
Exactly. And what role does BCATO play? Well, what we do is we hold seminars. We hold seminars for newly elected officials to train them on what it is to be a township supervisor or tax collector or auditor. We hold seminars through BCATO's education committee. We hold seminars all throughout Bucks County. We'll go in, we'll find out what's the issue that's affecting that community, we'll bring in speakers, and we'll educate local elected officials on the problems that are going on all throughout Bucks County.
Right. Right. I know there's several issues that we work on. That I call them the hot issues that we work on constantly, always new ones, always new ones. One of the ones for a few years that very close to me is certainly with Philadelphia and the taxes that we don't collect there. Sterling Act.
Absolutely.
The Sterling Act goes way back to 1934. People have heard me talk about this long enough, but to bring it to light, that now we have a group, we've been working as a group, and incidentally, and I'll let you talk about that, but working with other counties. The Sterling Act actually doesn't allow local townships outside of Philadelphia to collect any of that tax that we would have here, like most municipalities that have and earn income tax. They get it back to their community wherever they pay it. Philadelphia keeps it all. They have, I think it's 3.5, approximate if I'm off by a little digit, 3.5 they collect from residents outside of Philadelphia. We get none of that. And it's an old, antiquated law from 1934, as I said. How many people were working from Bensalem in 1934 in Philadelphia? Very few, as surrounding community. So the impact wasn't great. But I'll let you talk about that, the impact that it has, and what we're doing here at BCATO.
Absolutely. I pointed out a couple different townships that I want to talk about how many residents that live in these townships but work in Philadelphia. And we'll start with Bensalem. Now, these are 2017 numbers, so obviously the number's gone up. But off the 2017 numbers, here in Bensalem, there's over 3,800 residents who live in Bensalem but work in the city of Philadelphia. And that number that we're missing out on here in Bensalem is over $1 million that's staying in Philadelphia, not coming back to Bensalem. Our neighbor in Bristol Township, they have over 1,900 residents who live in Bristol, work in the city of Philadelphia, and that number is roughly $500,000. In my home township of Warminster Township, we have 1,700 residents who live in Warminster but work in the city of Philadelphia, and that number comes out to $500,000 that we certainly could use in our budget that we're not getting. One of the other larger townships is Northampton Township. They have 3,300 residents who live in Northampton and obviously work in the city of Philadelphia. Mayor, that number comes out to $1.3 million, not every 1 or 2 years, Mayor, every year, $1.3 million that Northampton's losing out.
They're big numbers.
They're very big numbers, yes.
And you point out that that's money we could use on our roads and help all of our, whatever, the police forces, all of our EMS, our fire. These are money that could come back to our community. So we're fighting hard for that. And I want to thank you for staying on top of this and being one of our main agenda items to try to get worked out with the legislature. Obviously, this is the legislator up in Harrisburg that run this. This is a law. It's a state law, and only Philadelphia is protected by this.
Absolutely. And since we're talking about BCATO, what are some of the things that BCATO is doing to this? One is we're educating our membership. We're educating our township supervisors to go back into their community and tell them what's going on, how the Sterling Act is affecting their communities. Mayor, there's a story I like to say when I'm at township meetings. In Warminster, we have a train station. And as I said, we have about 1,700 residents who live in Warminster Township but work in the city of Philadelphia. And I tell the story of the residents. If you can imagine, we have 1,700 residents who go to the Warminster train station every day, get on the train, drive down to Philadelphia, go to work, but at the end of the year, that $500,000 never makes a train ride back to Warminster. That revenue stays in the city of Philadelphia to help visualize what's going on here. But if we're talking about Bucks County as a whole, I'd like to give you 3 numbers here. The first number here, as the Sterling Act affects Bucks County as a whole, is first number is 23,803. That's the number of residents that live in Bucks County but work in the city of Philadelphia. And mind you, these are 2017 numbers. The second number is $8.6 million. That's a big number, so I'm going to repeat it. $8.6 million. That number reflects the amount of money that's staying in the city of Philadelphia, not coming to Bucks County. Now, all due respect to Philadelphia, my parents were from Philadelphia. This isn't about anything negative against Philadelphia. This is a matter of fairness. As we said, the City Wage Act tax is roughly 3.6%. We're just asking for the 1%.
Oh yeah, we're not asking them to come back with their 3. They would obviously keep that. We just want what we do with every other community.
Correct.
Is reciprocate back of where the person lives. That's where the tax comes back to, not Philadelphia. Yeah. And I'm not knocking Philadelphia either. They're our neighbors. And you know, the economics of this, our people are down there, they're eating there, they're spending their money in Philly, you know, so they're getting their fair share.
Oh, absolutely.
Going back a couple of years, because I've been fighting this thing for quite a few years, we're willing to sit down and talk to them to make this gradually over a period of years, maybe 0.5% first, and then to get to where it's fair. That's all we're asking is fair. Same as the rest of the state. That's all we're asking. Am I correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I gave you the first 2 numbers, and the third number is probably the most important number, and that number is 717-787-2500. And that number is a number of Governor Tom Wolf. And I would ask everyone who's watching, all our local elected officials and our residents, to call that number and ask Governor Wolf to support reforming the Sterling Act.
Okay, well, that number we'll put up on the screen too,
Absolutely.
at the end, so they'll all see that number. Second thing, and the things we're bringing up here are very important to everyone out there, and this one I know hits for everyone to listen to. This is the opioid crisis. The opioid crisis is out of control. We all know that. It's almost, we're repetitious by saying it. But it is. It's an incredible crisis that we're going through. And it's not just here in Bensalem. It's all over. It's hitting all Bucks County. It's hitting all of it. And it's something that I know, Dan, again, it's on the top of your list. So why don't you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I think when you talk about the opioid crisis that affects Bucks County, I think there's one name you have to bring up, and that's Matt Weintraub, our district attorney, and he's a dear friend of ours.
Absolutely.
And Matt works relentlessly on combating against the opioid crisis. But one of the several things that BCATO is doing is we have an opioid committee that's headed by Diana Nolan. She's a supervisor in Upper Makefield. And the opioid committee, what we're doing is, again, we're educating our membership. We're educating our membership to go back to their local communities and help promote the prescription drop-off box. Because we know that...
we have it here. It's a big thing.
Exactly. 85% of the people who abuse prescription painkillers, they ultimately end up using heroin, taking heroin. We know that fact. We also Narcan. We have our first responders training Narcan sessions, training our first responders with Narcan. And Mayor, I know you know this all too well, but as a local elected official, sometimes something happens in our township, we get a notification about that. And as a Warminster Township supervisor, whenever I get a notification about there's been a drug overdose, or unfortunately there's been a death from a drug overdose, it's enough's enough, we need to do something about it. And I think that's a big part of the lawsuit. That Bensalem, you led the way with the lawsuit.
Absolutely, we're the first ones. And hopefully with everybody joining in, we're going to put these folks, they're on notice, there's no question about it. They have to be more responsible, doctors and how this thing is being distributed, these drugs out there. It's a big problem. It's not an easy solution. By the way, my nephew Gene DiGirolamo up in the legislature in Harris has been working on this very, very hard with Matt and actually with Brian Fitzpatrick down in Washington. They're trying to bring this all together for us here in Bucks County. Where it's heartbreaking. And Dan, what you just said, when you get notified as a public official, and it breaks your heart. I mean, you just and your hands are like this. You're tied, and you're trying to break loose and say, what can we do? And we are. What can we do more? And BCATO is taking that up, and I thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned Gene. BCATO just had our convention, and Gene was a big part of it. We had a panel discussion. That Diane Nolan's the head of our opioid committee. She came and she was the moderator, but Gene played a big part in explaining what's going on in Harrisburg as far as the opioid crisis. We had Rob Lockery, who's our county commissioner.
Talk there too.
And of course, Matt Weintraub was there. But these are the things that BCATO is doing is, again, educating what we need to do as far as educating our membership, and also is the educating townships who want to get involved in the lawsuits. Warminster's involved now. We have a number of other townships that are getting involved, and we're providing that resource for townships who enough is enough. And it's because it's not just the lies, it's the fiscal impact on our budgets. That's effective.
If somebody out there, and there's something more you want to know about the Bucks County Association, township officials, if these two things that we talked are major things with the Sterling Act and the opioid crisis, but there's many things we do. If there's something you think you would know about, certainly Dan is our president, and we'll have his certainly have his, well, you can see on the screen will be on their phone number and website. They can get and ask questions, and we'd be glad to answer them. And certainly I'm right here in Bensalem. Anybody here that wants to know more about it and what we do. I'll give you some closing words. What would you like to talk about? Anything else? Is there some?
I would just encourage people who want to know more about BCATO. There is the website. Encouraging people to get more involved with their local elected officials, get more involved with local government, what's going on, because it has such a big impact on your day-to-day life. And the work that BCATO is doing, educating our local officials.
Yeah, well, you're doing a darn good job,
Thank
Dan,
you.
and I appreciate that. It's not easy, as everything else, when you're leading the way. You can either drop the ball or you carry the ball through, and you're carrying the ball, and we appreciate that, all of us here in Bucks County, for the job that you're doing. And we're going to keep up on these things. There's other things I know. We talked about 2 topics here, major topics, but there's other things that we're doing. And any others you want to mention before we leave?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind is volunteer firefighters, the shortage with volunteer firefighters, and BCATO's playing a big part. Again, through your leadership with the legislative committee, is working with our legislators to try to find a fix for that. We know that the number of volunteer firefighters has obviously decreased, and that is a problem, and it's something that BCATO is working on.
Well, again, Dan, I thank you, and look forward to any other time we want to do a show again and bring people up to date. And you wear a lot of hats, so there may be other things that we'll be talking to you about. But I want to thank you today. God bless you, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Major.
All right?
Appreciate it.
Until next time, everybody, God bless.